She had to choose between her first love and her soulmate, the night. It all came back. Rain tapped softly on the window panes of the seaside inn as Elena Moreno pressed her forehead against the cool glass. Her breath fogged the surface, blurring the view of the ocean. It was almost midnight. She had returned to this coastal town, the one she swore she'd never step foot in again, for her cousin's wedding. A simple, harmless weekend, she'd told herself. But she hadn't expected this. She hadn't expected him. A notification blinked on her phone. A message. "Adrian, you're really here, after all this time." Elena closed her eyes, the weight of 10 years crashing into her chest. Adrian Vargas, her first love, the boy with the stormy eyes, the boy who kissed her like the world ended at sunrise, the boy who left. Her thumb trembled above the screen. She shouldn't reply. She shouldn't even read the message again. She had a life now, an organized, peaceful, beautifully solid life. A life she had built from careful bricks after surviving the chaos Adrian left behind. But then her phone buzzed again. "Adrian, please talk to me." And those 3 words, simple, earnest, familiar, detonated something inside her. Past that refused to stay buried. When Elena was 16, Adrian had been everything intoxicating and destructive. He came from a family always halfway to falling apart. His father disappeared before he hit puberty. His mother swallowed sadness as her breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He was unpredictable, restless, dangerous in the way a wounded creature is dangerous. And he loved Elena with a devotion that felt like a promise and a warning. She used to spend nights lying on the hood of his beat-up truck, counting constellations as he traced her hand lines with his fingertips. "I'll never leave you," he whispered once. But promises made at 17 can be hollow as dried petals. When she was 18, he received a scholarship, an escape from the town suffocating him. He left. He said he had to, said he'd return, said they'd survive the distance. He never returned. He never explained. He just became a ghost with her heart in his hands. And she learned to forget him. Or at least learned to pretend. Man. She built her life. With 2 years after Adrian vanished, Elena met someone entirely different. Someone warm, steady, dependable. Someone who didn't love like a wildfire, but like a sunrise. Gentle, patient, every day brighter than the last. Luca Bennett. Luca, with his thoughtful eyes and quiet humor. Luca, who took her on dates where they painted mugs and walked through farmers' markets instead of sneaking onto rooftops or racing on highways. Luca, who read her silence like poetry and held her during every storm. Luca, who once told her, "I know your heart has been hurt. I'm not here to erase your past. I'm here to build your future." And Elena believed him. With him, she wasn't drowning. With him, she finally breathed. After 6 beautiful years together, they were talking openly about marriage. The future was clear, safe, and hers. Until this weekend. Until Adrian. The first encounter. The morning after the message, Elena tried to avoid the inevitable. She threw herself into helping with wedding preparations, arranging flowers, calming her panicking cousin, deflecting questions about her career and her relationship. But in a town this small, avoiding someone was impossible. She saw Adrian first across the courtyard of the inn. He stood under a blooming jacaranda tree, its lavender petals drifting around him like a forgotten dream. He leaned against the trunk, hands in pockets, gaze fixed on her as though he had spent all these years waiting for this moment. Her breath caught. He still had that quietly devastating presence, dark hair longer, jaw sharper, voice deeper when he finally spoke. Elena, just her name. But it shattered her composure. She whispered, "Adrian, why are you here?" "I'm here for the wedding. Matteo invited me." Her cousin. "Of course." He stepped closer. "And I heard you'd be here too." She swallowed. You didn't need to find me. Yes, he murmured. I did. He smelled faintly of cedar and wind. Memories pressed against her ribs like hands trying to break through. You look different, he said gently. Stronger. You look the same, she replied, even though he didn't. He was older, more grounded, less troubled. But the eyes, still the same tempest. You didn't answer my messages, Adrian said. I didn't know what to say. You could have said you were okay. I am, she lied. He nodded, but the sadness in his gaze sharpened. Can we talk? Later? Tonight? No. The answer came too quickly, too brittle. There's nothing left to say. Adrian's jaw tightened, but not in anger, in pain. If that's true, I'll walk away, but if it's not, at least give me the chance to explain what happened. Her heart stuttered painfully. Adrian, please don't do this. He whispered. I never stopped thinking about you, Lena. That name again, the one only he ever used. She turned and fled before her heart burst open. Luca arrives. By late afternoon, Luca arrived at the wedding venue. Elena ran to him, relief crashing over her like a wave. He was home, safe, solid, her anchor. He lifted her off the ground beautifully, as he always did. Hey, sweetheart. His smile softened something deep inside her. He kissed her forehead and tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. Missed you. Elena clung to him. I missed you too. But even as she buried her face into his shoulder, part of her was acutely aware of how different this embrace felt compared to the ones that haunted her memory. Guilt stabbed her. She told herself it was just old emotions resurfacing. Ghosts, nerves, nothing real. But her heart whispered a truth she wasn't ready to hear. The wedding eve party. The night before the wedding, the families gathered for a candlelit dinner on the terrace overlooking the ocean. Laughter filled the air, music floated from string lights, and wine glasses clinked. Elena sat beside Luca, but her eyes flickered, unwilling, across the tables until they found Adrian. He sat alone at the end, illuminated by soft light, watching her with an expression she didn't understand, half hope, half heartbreak. Luca followed her gaze. Who's that? He asked casually. Her throat dried. An old friend, she whispered. But Luca didn't miss the tremor in her voice. The conversation she tried to avoid. When diners drifted away from tables toward the fire pit, Elena slipped toward the beach, needing air, needing quiet. But Adrian followed. You said we had nothing to talk about, he said, stopping a few feet behind her. But your eyes said something else. She turned. What do you want from me? For you to listen. Why? Why after 10 years? Because I owe you the truth. His voice broke. I didn't leave because I wanted to, he said. I left because my mother had a breakdown the night before I was supposed to come home. I spent years taking care of her. I couldn't drag you into that. I thought I'd come back for you when everything was okay, but it never got okay. Elena stared at him, stunned. And you couldn't tell me? She whispered. I was ashamed. I didn't want you to see how broken everything was. I didn't want you to feel obligated to stay with someone who couldn't give you anything. Tears stung her. I needed you, she said. I would have stayed. I would have waited. I know. His voice cracked, and that was what scared me most. Adrian stepped closer. I hoped you moved on, but seeing you now, I realized I still... Don't, she whispered, shaking her head. Please, don't say it. But he already had. He whispered, I still love you. Her heart stumbled dangerously. And I think part of you still loves me too. Elena backed away, trembling. I have Luca. I know. I can see you care for him. His voice was raw. Maybe he's everything I never was. But Lena, Tell me honestly, when you look at me, do you really feel nothing?" Her silence was enough. Adrian closed his eyes as though the truth physically hurt him. "Please," he whispered, "don't lie to both of us." Elena felt the ground tilt beneath her. "I need to go," she said, fleeing. She left Adrian standing alone on the shore, swallowed by darkness. Luca's question. Later that night, Luca found her on the balcony of their guest room. "You okay?" He wrapped his arms around her waist. "Yes," she said instantly. But he studied her carefully. Luca always noticed everything gently but clearly. "You've been distracted," he said slowly. "Is it because of that guy?" Elena froze. Luca hesitated before asking the question that made her heart fracture. "Elena, do you still have feelings for him?" It was the moment she feared most. She could lie. She could protect him, protect her life. But Luca deserved truth always. "I don't know," she whispered. The pain that flickered across his eyes wounded her more deeply than any memory. Luca took a step back. "Do you want to be with him?" "No," she cried instantly. "I want you. I love you." "But you're not sure," Luca whispered. Her silence answered for her. He turned away, hands trembling. "Elena, I love you more than anything, but I won't be someone's second choice, and I won't let you choose me out of guilt." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "You don't have to decide tonight," he said softly, "but you need to decide." The letter she never sent. She couldn't sleep. So she wrote, a letter to Adrian, one she never intended to give him. "Adrian, you were my first everything, my first reckless heartbeat, my first collapse, my first attempt at forever. I loved you with the kind of love that had no brakes. You left, and I convinced myself it was because I wasn't enough. I built my life from the pieces you left behind, and when I finally learned to breathe again, Luca walked in and showed me what safe love felt like. But now you're here, and I hate how much I remember. I hate that I'm not numb. I hate that I don't know how to stop loving what we were. And yet, I also love Luca, and I don't want to lose him. I don't know what's true anymore. Elena." She folded the letter and tucked it into her suitcase like burying a confession. The wedding and the breaking point. The next afternoon, the ceremony took place overlooking sunlit waters. The bride glowed, the groom cried, petals flew through the breeze. Elena tried to focus on joy, but her heart was a battlefield. Adrian stood across the aisle. Luca stood beside her. When the officiant said, "Love is a choice we make every day," Elena's breath caught painfully. She wanted to choose Luca. She needed to. But the moment she saw Adrian wipe a tear when the couple kissed, her heart ached in a way she couldn't explain. Because Adrian had never gotten his chance at forever, and she had once been the girl he wanted it with. The breaking storm. During the reception, Elena stepped outside for air, her chest tight. She didn't expect Adrian to follow. "You're hurting," he murmured. "Please," she whispered, "don't make this harder." "I'm not trying to." He paused. "If you choose him, I'll disappear forever. You'll never hear from me again. But I need you to know one thing before you decide." Her pulse trembled. Adrian cupped her face gently. "I never stopped loving you, not even once. You were the light I carried through every dark year, Lena." Her tears spilled. "I can make you happy," he whispered. "Not the way I could when I was 17. I've grown. I can give you stability now. I can give you everything I couldn't back then." Her body shook with confusion, longing, grief. "Adrian," she said, voice trembling, "why now?" "Because I finally became the man I should have been for you." She stepped back, breaking free. "I need time." Adrian nodded slowly, though pain flickered through his eyes. "As long as you need," he said, but time was the one thing she didn't have. Luca's goodbye. When Elena returned to her room, Luca was packing. "No," she whispered. "Luca, please don't." He looked at her with eyes full of love and sorrow. "I'm not leaving you. I'm giving you space." "Luca, you need to figure out your heart without me standing over your shoulder," he said gently. "I'll be at my parents' house tonight. Call me when you've made your decision." "Please don't go," she cried, reaching for him. He kissed her forehead, soft, breaking, final. "I love you enough to let you choose freely," he whispered. And then he left, and Elena collapsed onto the floor, sobbing into her hands. The choice. Elena walked the shoreline long after midnight, waves brushing her ankles, wind slicing through her thoughts. Two men loved her deeply. She loved them both, but she couldn't keep both, couldn't hold one while yearning for another, couldn't build a future on fractures. She closed her eyes and listened for the truth beneath the noise, beneath the guilt, beneath the nostalgia and fear. Which love made her feel whole? Which love made her feel like herself? Which love allowed her to breathe without losing pieces of her soul? And when dawn stained the sky pink, Elena finally knew. The decision, she went first to the inn patio, where Adrian sat watching the waves. He rose instantly. "Elena," her eyes filled with tears, "I will always love what we were," she said softly. "You were my first love, my deepest ache, my most beautiful memory." Adrian's throat bobbed. "But you're not my future." Pain shattered across his face. "I'm choosing Luca," she whispered. "Not because he's safe, not because I owe him, but because when I'm with him I feel peace. And with you, I feel like I'm always bracing for impact." Adrian closed his eyes tightly. "I'm sorry," she said, voice breaking. He shook his head. "Don't be. If I had come back sooner, maybe things would have been different." He stepped forward and pressed a soft kiss to her forehead, like a farewell blessing. "But I'm glad you found the love you deserve." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I hope you find yours too," she whispered. Adrian gave her one last aching smile. "I already did," he said gently, "and now I have to let her go." And he walked away, carrying 10 years of love into the rising dawn. Her soulmate, Elena, found Luca standing on the pier, looking out at the water. He didn't turn when she approached. She stopped beside him. "Luca?" His voice was soft. "Did you decide?" Elena took his hand, intertwined their fingers, and guided it to her heart. "I choose you," she whispered. He exhaled shakily, pain melting into relief. "Elena, I choose the man who stays, the man who sees me, the man who loves me without burning me, the man who feels like home." Luca's eyes filled with tears as he pulled her into his chest. "Are you sure?" She nodded against him. "You're my soulmate, not because you saved me from my past, but because you helped me become someone stronger than my past." He cupped her face and kissed her, slow, warm, full of love that didn't demand she bleed to prove it. A kiss that felt like healing, a kiss that felt like forever. 1 year later, Elena and Luca married on the same cliff where her cousin had wed. The air was thick with roses and sunlight. During the reception, as Elena walked toward the edge of the cliff, she saw a small envelope tucked into the bouquet table. Her breath caught, one word written on it. "Lena." She opened it. "I'm glad you found happiness. Thank you for loving me when I didn't know how to love myself." Adrian Elena pressed the note to her heart, whispered a soft goodbye, and let the breeze carry the past away. Then she turned toward Luca, her husband, her future, her forever, her soulmate, and with a steady, full heart, Elena stepped into the life she had finally chosen. Before, everything was broken. Elena was 15 the first time she saw Adrian Vargas properly, not just as the quiet boy in her math class, not just as the mysterious kid who sat in the back row and rarely spoke, but as someone who made her heart pause between beats. She had walked into the old lighthouse at sunset, looking for a place to sketch. She loved drawing the sea, its moods, its anger, its gentleness. Her mother always said Elena had been born with salt in her blood. And there he was, Adrian, sitting on the railing outside, dangerously close to the drop, feet dangling above the rocks. The wind whipped his dark hair across his forehead. He didn't look at her at first. When he did, it felt like the sky shifted. "You shouldn't sit there," she said. He smirked. "Everyone says that. Because it's dangerous. That's why I like it." She had rolled her eyes then, a small thing, a normal thing. But she remembered it years later, remembered how she'd been annoyed at him before she ever knew him. "Are you trying to get hurt?" she had asked. "Already am," he said simply. And that was the first moment she saw it. The sadness in him, the bruise beneath his personality. She didn't know then how much deeper it went, but she would learn. Oh, she would learn. The first crack in his armor. 2 months after that lighthouse meeting, their friendship had deepened in the strange, silent way teenage friendships sometimes do. He didn't talk much. She talked too much. He listened. She filled the silence. And somehow they fit. One evening, after an argument with her father, Elena ran to the only place she felt understood, the lighthouse. Adrian was already there, sitting on the floor with his sketch pad. "You draw?" she asked, surprised. "Only things that don't stay," he answered without looking up. "Clouds, waves, people who leave." "Not all people leave." Adrian laughed softly, a sound so bitter it felt like metal scraping. "You really believe that?" "Yes." "Well," he said, finally meeting her eyes, "you're lucky." And then she saw it, the bruise on his cheek. "Adrian." Her voice softened. "Who?" "Don't," he whispered. For the first time, she saw him not as the reckless boy who pretended the world didn't affect him, but as someone who carried oceans inside him. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He shrugged. "It's nothing." But it wasn't nothing, and she would never forget the night he let her sit beside him, both of them staring at the moon, and whispered, "You're the only person who knows what I look like when I'm not pretending." The night they fell in love. It happened in late summer, the kind of heavy, warm night when the air feels thick enough to swallow whole. They had snuck onto the roof of the old grocery store, Adrian's idea as always. "Why are we up here?" Elena asked. He lay back, hands behind his head. "Because up here it feels like the world isn't touching me." She sat beside him. "Is it really that bad?" He didn't answer. Instead, after a long silence, he said, "You know what's strange? I think if I hadn't met you, I wouldn't have made it to 17. She froze. "Adrian, I mean it. When you show up, it feels like something inside me stops hurting." She felt her throat tighten. "You make me feel that way too." His eyes flickered toward her then, dark, vulnerable, terrifyingly honest. "Elena," he whispered, "can I—" She didn't let him finish. Her lips found his, soft at first, then urgent. The kiss was sunlight and storms and every desperate thing they feared and needed. When they broke apart, breathless, Adrian pressed his forehead to hers. "I think I'm in love with you," he whispered. But love to Adrian was always a dangerous thing, and she didn't yet know how much it would cost her. A year after Elena and Luca's wedding, Elena thought choosing Luca would quiet the ghosts. She thought marrying him would lay the past to rest. She thought Adrian would fade into memory like the rest of her teenage scars. She was wrong. Even a year into marriage, a good marriage, a loving marriage, she still sometimes dreamed of the lighthouse, of Adrian's hands in hers, of broken promises and lingering touches, and all the versions of them that never got to be. She never told Luca about the dreams. Some things were too cruel to confess, but life had a way of stirring what she thought was buried, and trouble came in the form of a letter from a woman she had never met, a letter from the past. The envelope was simple, white, ordinary, but the handwriting, sharp, elegant, made her stomach twist. To Elena Bennett, formerly Moreno. Inside, one sentence changed everything. "You don't know me, but I'm Adrian Vargas's sister. He needs your help." Her hands shook. Elena hadn't known he even had a sister. The letter continued. "He will never ask you, but something is wrong. And you're the only person he has ever listened to." Elena pressed the paper to her chest, eyes burning. Why now? Why after she had chosen her life, her marriage, her peace? Luca found her minutes later. "You're pale," he said gently. "What's wrong?" She hid the letter behind her back. "Nothing," she lied, but Luca's eyes narrowed. "Elena," he said softly, "is this about Adrian?" She froze. Her silence was enough. He exhaled slowly, painfully. What happened now? Elena finally handed him the letter. The moment Luca finished reading, he closed his eyes as though hit by a wave he had long feared. "Elena," he whispered, "please don't go back into that world." She swallowed hard. "I'm not going anywhere. I want to understand." But the truth was worse than that. She wanted to know if Adrian was okay. She wanted to know why he needed her. She wanted to know why her heart still responded to his name like an old wound remembering pain. Luca's fear. That night, Luca barely slept. He watched Elena tossing in bed, her mind clearly somewhere else, and he knew exactly where. When dawn broke, he finally said, "Elena, I trust you, but I'm scared." She touched his face, guilt slicing through her. "You don't have to be. I love you." "I know," he said, "but I also know the part of you that still misses him." She froze. He placed a hand on hers. "I'm not angry," he whispered. "I just don't want to lose you to a past you couldn't control." Tears pricked her eyes. "You won't," she said. But she didn't know if she believed herself. Adrian's return, again. 3 days later, Elena met Adrian's sister, Isabella, at a quiet cafe. Isabella looked older than Adrian, with the same eyes but sharper features. She studied Elena carefully. "You're not what I expected," Isabella said. "I'm not sure what that means." "You're gentle. I always pictured the girl Adrian loved as someone reckless like him." Elena stiffened. "I'm not. The girl he loves. Not anymore." Isabella gave a knowing smile. "You keep telling yourself that. What's going on, Isabella? Why did you contact me?" Isabella looked out the window, expression shadowed. "Because Adrian is disappearing again." Elena's pulse lurched. "What do you mean?" "He lost his job. He stopped painting. Stopped leaving his apartment. He doesn't answer calls. He refuses help. I think he's depressed." The word punched Elena in the chest. Isabella continued, "You're the only person he's ever listened to. If anyone can pull him out, it's you." Elena's breath trembled. "I can't," she whispered. "I'm married." "I'm not asking you to love him," Isabella said softly. "I'm asking you to save him." The moment she broke her promise. Elena stood outside Adrian's apartment that evening, heart pounding. She shouldn't be here. She promised Luca she wouldn't. She promised herself she wouldn't. But when she knocked on the door and when Adrian opened it, her world unraveled. He looked thinner, unshaven, eyes exhausted, shoulders slumped. Nothing like the man who once held her under the jacaranda tree. "Elena," he whispered, disbelief breaking across his face. Her heart cracked. "Hi," she said softly. "Isabella told me you weren't doing well." He closed his eyes, jaw trembling. "Why did you come?" She swallowed. "I wanted to see if you're okay." Adrian let out a small, broken laugh. "No one checks on me. Not anymore." "I'm checking," she said. "Right now." He looked at her with eyes full of 10 years of love, pain, regret. "Elena," he whispered, voice breaking, "I'm not okay." And that was the moment something inside her shattered, because she realized, no matter how much she loved Luca, she could still break for Adrian. The apartment full of shadows. "Can I come in?" Elena asked softly. Adrian stepped aside without a word. The moment she entered, her heart squeezed. The apartment was dim, curtains drawn, air heavy with the scent of stale coffee and something like resignation. Sketches littered the floor, half-finished, torn, abandoned. Adrian used to draw light. Now everything on his walls was grayscale. She felt her throat tighten. "When's the last time you opened a window?" she asked gently, walking toward the curtains. "Don't," he murmured. But she did. She pulled them open and sunlight pierced the room. Adrian flinched as though it hurt him. "Elena?" His voice was barely a whisper. "Why did you come?" "Because I care. Because I still think about you. Because I dream about the lighthouse and the boy who made me feel alive." She couldn't say any of that. "I came because you matter," she said simply. "To your sister. To the people who love you." Her mistake was in the last 4 words. Adrian let out a humorless laugh. "People who love me? I don't think I have those." "You have Isabella," he shrugged. "She worries because she feels obligated to." "You're wrong." "Then who else?" he challenged, stepping closer. "You." Elena froze. She couldn't lie. But she couldn't tell the truth either. So she said nothing. And silence answered for her. Adrian's expression softened. Not triumph, not arrogance. Just a heartbreak that seemed decades old. "You shouldn't be here," he said softly. "I know." "Your husband." "I know." "Then why didn't you walk away?" Her voice broke. "Because I couldn't." Adrian closed his eyes. The weight of what was never said. He sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. "I didn't want you to see me like this," he whispered. "So empty." "You're not empty," she said. He let out a breath that trembled. "Then what am I, Elena? Because I feel like everything in me disappeared." Elena sat beside him, not too close, but close enough to remind him he wasn't alone. "You're hurting. That's not emptiness. That's exhaustion. From life? From fighting it alone." Adrian stared at her then, really stared, with that piercing intensity she remembered too well. "You still know me better than anyone," he said. Elena's heart twisted painfully. "I shouldn't." "But you do." She looked away. "Adrian, I'm married." "I know." His voice was soft, resigned. "And I'm not trying to take you from him." Her eyes met his. He added, barely audible, "Even if I want to." Her breath caught. "Adrian." He shook his head. "I won't say anything more. I just—" He swallowed hard. "I'm glad you're here." The call, she dreaded her phone buzzed. Luca. Her stomach flipped. She stood abruptly. I need to answer." Adrian nodded, gaze dropping to the floor. Elena stepped into the hallway and answered. "Hey," Luca said, trying to sound calm. "Are you still with Isabella?" The lie sat heavy on her tongue. I'm actually at Adrian's," her voice cracked. There was a long silence. "Elena," Luca finally said, "come home." "I can't. He's not okay." "I know he's not okay," Luca said tightly. "But you're my wife, and I can't sit at home wondering if I'm losing you all over again." His voice broke. "Please," he whispered. Come home." Elena closed her eyes, torn in two directions. "I'll be home soon," she whispered. She didn't know if she said it for herself or for him, the goodbye that didn't feel like one. When she walked back into the apartment, Adrian looked at her like she was a dream he already knew would fade. "You're leaving," he said quietly. "I need to." He nodded, fingers tightening around the edge of a sketch. "Will I see you again?" The question was soft, but the weight of it was unbearable. "Adrian," she whispered, "you need help, real help, from a therapist, from your family. You can't do this alone." He gave a hollow smile. "I was doing it alone for years before you walked in today." "That's the problem," she said, voice trembling. "You shouldn't have to." He studied her, eyes burning with everything they had been and everything they would never be. "Elena," he said, "I know you won't choose me again. I know that. I'm not asking for that." Her chest tightened. "I just don't want you to disappear from my life again." Elena felt her throat close. "I don't want to disappear," she whispered. It was the truth she had been terrified to say aloud. Adrian exhaled, pain and relief tangled in his breath. But then Elena stood, moved to the door. She hesitated. Then she turned back and hugged him. It was the first time she initiated it. Adrian froze, then his arms closed around her, slowly, as if afraid she'd vanish. His face buried in her hair, his breath shaking, his heart beating hard against hers. It felt like 13 years ago under the stars. It felt like promises they never made. It felt like everything she tried to forget. "Elena," he whispered into her shoulder. "Don't go." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I have to," she whispered back. She pulled away. Adrian didn't try to stop her, but his eyes followed her like goodbye wasn't a real word. When love begins to fracture. Luca was waiting in the kitchen when she returned home. He wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't slamming doors. He was worse. He was quiet, painfully, devastatingly quiet. "Elena," he finally said, "do you love him?" She froze. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I don't know," she whispered. Luca's expression shattered. "Elena," his voice was barely a breath. "I can survive you loving someone you used to know. I can even survive you caring about him. But I don't think I can survive you not knowing." Tears spilled from her eyes. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too." "But is it enough?" he asked, voice trembling. "Is it enough to keep you from drifting back to him?" "It is," she insisted. "Then swear to me," Luca said, voice raw, "that you'll stay away from him." Elena's heart stopped. "I can't swear that." He staggered back as though struck. "Elena! Luca, he needs help, real help. He's falling apart." "And what are you?" Luca asked, voice breaking. "His savior, his therapist, his shadow of hope." "You can't be the woman who fixes him and also my wife." She wiped silent tears from her cheeks. "I don't want to be his anything," she whispered. "But I also can't abandon someone who's drowning." Luca's chest rose and fell in jagged breaths. He pressed his palms to his eyes. "I can't lose you," he whispered. "You're not losing me." "But am I enough to keep you?" he asked softly. Elena didn't answer, because she didn't know.